to adopt the agenda would be in order.
Move. Second.
All those in favor? Motion is carried. A couple delegations this evening. First of all, Maura Walker, Todd Baker, regarding the solid waste management plan update. I understand the presentation will be about 15 minutes, so you can come take the podium and proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Maura Walker. I'm a solid waste management planner and part of the consulting team that's been working on developing a draft solid waste management plan for kind of a long-range vision for how we want to handle solid waste management in the Comox Valley Regional District as well as the Strathcona Regional District. So it includes what's happening in the municipalities as well as what's happening in the electoral areas. So this is kind of a brief overview, if I get this organized, on what we're doing right now, which is the community consultation on the draft recommendations. So we're in a phase right now where we're doing a fairly extensive community and First Nations consultation. We've booked 14 community meetings trying to hit all the major communities within both regional districts, and a First Nations consultant has been engaged to go and talk to all of the First Nations communities. There's an online feedback form for people that may not be so inclined to come out to meetings or not able to, and that's been really well responded to so far, so lots of people providing their thoughts on the recommendations. And really the intention here is to get feedback on not only some of the waste minimization ideas that we've put forward, but in particular we're looking for people's input on some of the disposal options that have been drafted. It's been broadly promoted, and hopefully everybody here got a newsletter in the mail that outlines what's in the plan and tells them about the meetings, but it's been in newspapers, on the radio, Facebook, Twitter, so we're trying to get it out there in as many points of media as possible. To kind of add to the decision-making process and get more information, they've also gone through a process of having a randomly selected telephone survey of residents in the area to get their feedback as well. I'm going to take all this input in, and that's going to help finalize what actually goes into the draft plan. When we started this process, we wanted to kind of get a sense of where we're at. And so we did a fairly extensive look at existing programs and policies, and this is just one little snippet of it, but it's some of the key bits. Disposal right now is about 64,000 tons goes into all of our landfills, but we're recycling or composting about 60,000 tons, which is a pretty big shift from where we were 10 years ago, where almost about half of the material that we're generating as waste materials are being recycled or composted. But when we look at what's still in the landfill, and that's the donut graph down below, we see that it's still a big chunk of it, roughly 43%. It could be potentially recyclable. About 35% is compostable. 3% is product stewardship materials, and that's the materials that have an eco-fee levied on them. They're things like computers and paints and tires, and they have industry take-back programs in place. And only about 19% is what we would really call kind of waste or garbage that we don't really know what to do with it. At least we don't know yet what to do with it. So diving right into what's being proposed and what we're trying to get feedback on is there's three kind of overarching objectives. One of them is to have a goal of zero waste. We want to see that every year we're reducing the amount of waste that we send to landfill. The second is we'd like to reduce greenhouse gases associated with our solid waste management system. And then finally, that any landfills that we do have be designed and operated to minimize their impact on the environment and in the surrounding community. When we started this process, we asked people what they thought of the existing services they have, infrastructure programs, things that they're familiar with. And a number of things got really highly rated. And so we kind of figured, let's continue with what's working well. Let's not mess with, we know what people like. That includes promotion and education initiatives like the Power of Our program, the Backyard Composting program, the municipal curbside collection services. People are really happy with the services that they receive. The recycling drop-off depots, as well as the recycling services at the waste management centers. And at the landfills and the transfer stations, we usually offer more opportunities for recycling than just what we do at curbside. So you can do things like yard waste and scrap metal and things of that nature. So it expands that list of what we could potentially recycle. When we're sort of thinking about what's still in the waste stream, one of the things we're realizing is that we're doing really great on the single-family home side of things, but we're not necessarily doing as well in our multifamily homes. They don't have that same level of access to recycling, so it's not as convenient. So we'd like to see recycling services at multifamily buildings. We also realize that a number of businesses are not participating in recycling to the level that they could. So that big chunk that we saw in that donut graph of what's recyclable, we think if we drove a little bit more recycling in these sectors, we could see that number reduced quite substantially. And in support of that, one of the things that we hear when we're talking to business owners or multifamily building managers is that they don't have space. So we want to see new development plans going forward. This isn't kind of retroactive, but new plans. Think through waste management as we do with water and sewer, that there is mandatory space allocation for proper waste management, including recycling. And then the intention here, I should mention that in terms of recycling services at multifamily buildings and businesses, each municipality would need to define how that's going to be, whether that's a service that they provide, or is it something that they say that as of X date, that would be a requirement to be had. So each municipality needs to decide if they're going to go down that path or what that might look like. But the intention would be to have Comox Strathcona Waste Management to do some overarching promotion and education, so there's consistency between the municipalities within the regional districts. For organic waste diversion, this has generated a lot of discussion over the few years because we saw it as the one big chunk that could be dealt with within the waste stream. And so the intention here is to tackle that 35% of what we end up is in the landfill right now, which is a lot of that is food waste. We would have a pilot project for collection of food waste. And when I refer to food waste, it's beyond what we would put in our backyard composter. So it includes things like meat and grease and dairy and grains and things of that nature. We also we want to assess Campbell River as a potential site, and that's because Campbell River has put their name forward as being a potential host of a regional composting facility. So depending on which municipalities want to get involved in food waste diversion would help define whether that's an appropriate location. And then finally, once we've kind of got the results of that information, we can move forward with the regional organics diversion initiative. And the pot really, not only does that have waste diversion potential, but it has a significant potential to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases that we generate. Oh, sorry, I'm going to go back here. Did I go back? Oh, I'm only going forward now. Oh. One moment, just a little bit more gently. Well, this way. There we go, sorry. Of course, if we want to go forward with the composting facility, we're going to have to figure out how we're actually going to get food waste to that facility in order for it to be successful. So the intention really would be for municipalities to consider adding food waste collection to their curbside program. We were seeing that south of here in the regional district of Nanaimo, they've recently gone through the whole regional district and added that on, and it's been quite successful. And then for the commercial side, we would like to see a requirement for large generators like the large grocery stores and restaurants and institutions to have source separate that material. For household hazardous waste, so things again like paints and pesticides and motor oil, we'd like to provide more education. One of the things that we realize is that people are aware that they should throw things into the landfill or down the drain, but they don't necessarily know where to take things. And that list of what things that they could take back is really expanded in recent years to include smoke detectors and compact fluorescent bulbs and computers and laptops. So we need to provide more information as to where those take-back programs are. They are something that industry that sells those products and manufactures them provides. And so we want to work with them not only to provide the education, but then to also provide more convenient locations, kind of one-stop shops, at least one in each regional district. And for smaller communities and islands, have a roundup event that would go on a regular basis and collect materials from them. And this is particularly the products that we don't want to see in the waste stream. And we do believe that industry will fund a great big part of that service. And finally, on the diversion side of things, construction and demolition waste is a big chunk of the waste stream in particular times. And when our economy is booming, we've got lots of housing starts and there's lots of renovations, this can be a really substantial portion of what's in the waste stream. And a lot of it's recyclable or reusable. So we want to work with the private and nonprofit sectors to set out more services for the recycling and reuse of these materials. We want to work with the construction and demolition industry to make sure that contractors are aware of what materials are recyclable, what we expect in terms of recycling, and where they can take materials, who provides those services. And then I think we also want to empower the municipal permit departments, take a look at what they have in terms of what they do with permitting to see if we can encourage more waste diversion. There's some jurisdictions that have required large projects to have a mandatory solid waste management plan, so they pre-think what recycling, what can they reduce in advance of actually starting the project. Or maybe through the building permits, there's a reduced fee if you deconstruct the building as opposed to demolish it. So we think that with those recommendations focused on zero waste, that we can increase the diversion for the portion of this plan from 48% where we're at now to 70%. And if you manage to hit the 70%, which we think is quite viable because the regional district of Nanaimo thinks that they're achieved that in 2011, then you'd be up there with some of the leading communities in North America, and that would be pretty exciting stuff. That would primarily be achieved through the organics waste diversion activities, construction demolition waste, and encouraging more recycling within the multifamily sector, as well as the business, which we refer to as the ICI sector. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Todd Baker, my colleague, to talk about residual waste management.
So, Maura's talked about some of the options in the plan for reducing waste. There's still some stuff left over at the end of the day called residual waste or garbage. So currently there are 2 regional landfills, one in the south servicing the CVRD, one in the north servicing most of the SRD. Comox Valley landfill is located about 3.5 kilometers north of Cumberland, as shown on this slide. The Comox Valley landfill has approximately 4 to 6 years on the current permitted footprint. So that sort of boxy area where you see existing footprint, that box is the current permitted footprint area, and there's a potential expansion to the south that would provide an additional 6 to 8 years of capacity. The property to the northeast and to the east was purchased in 1999 for future landfill expansion, and those properties would provide over 60 years of additional capacity. This site was pegged as the sole regional facility back in the 90s, which is why the property was purchased. There was a site development plan put in place in 2009 that outlined the details for expanding that site and all the engineered systems required to do so. The other site is the Campbell River site, approximately 7 kilometers west of Campbell River. Kind of on the bottom of the slide, there's an arrow there, it's not clear. The current footprint is shown on the bottom of the slide. This is known as Block C. The current footprint is basically full. There's less than 1 year of capacity remaining on that footprint. Temporary transfer station has been constructed, and in the short term, waste is going to be transferred from that transfer station down to the Comox Valley site, while options are explored for this site. There's a property called Block J to the north of the current footprint that we investigated for potential landfill expansion, and that became part of the assessment work that we did as part of this plan. So we completed 2 assessments of long-term costs, one for landfill options that also included the option to export waste off the island, involving closing both landfills and sending waste to a landfill in Washington. The 6 other options consisted of using existing landfill capacity or developing new landfill capacity either between Comox Valley and Campbell River, or using the landfill at the Elk Falls Pulp and Paper Mill. So what we did was we estimated capital operating and transport costs over 40 years for engineered landfill systems, transfer station construction operation, and transportation to the destination landfill. From that assessment, we shortlisted 3 options consisting of expanding one or both of the existing landfills. The range of these costs is between $60 and $70 a ton. And just to give you an example of what these options consist of, expanding the Campbell River landfill would involve expanding that site, closing the Comox Valley site, constructing a transfer station in this area, and transporting all of the waste up island to the Campbell River site. So we investigated all the costs around those things. It's really a residual waste management system cost. The Comox Valley option ends up being the lowest cost option, mainly because less waste requires transport under that option, whereas with Campbell River site, more waste would have to be trucked up island from the south. Expanding both landfills ends up in the middle, in part because there's no additional transportation required in that option, although there is higher capital investment in both landfills. We completed another assessment of waste energy technologies following a similar methodology. Basically, waste energy technologies can be categorized into 2 basic categories. Conventional technologies, which are combustion, basically like burning wood on a campfire, but in a very sophisticated way. Advanced technologies are gasification, pyrolysis, plasma gasification, and the difference between the 2 is how much oxygen is present when the waste is burned. So our only waste-to-energy facility in British Columbia is in Burnaby, handles about 300,000 tons of waste per year from Metro Vancouver. That's about 3 times the amount of waste that's generated within the CBRD and the SRD. So we completed a similar assessment of long-term costs for waste-to-energy options. And these options consisted of a waste-to-energy facility somewhere in the region, continued use of one landfill, and then transportation as required from the north or the south, depending on the location. So we received information from the private sector on their technologies and their costs, and we took that information and plugged it into our cost model to come up with these cost numbers. So we only looked at one small-scale facility option because the technologies are different, and we know that the cost per ton is higher relative to the large-scale facilities that would handle a huge volume of waste, not only from this region, but potentially from the island and the lower mainland. The large-scale facility options, we selected the locations based on information that we received from the private sector, suggesting that there may be opportunities to develop those large-scale facilities in both Campbell River and Gold River. So the range of these costs is $90 to $140 a ton, as compared to the landfill options, which are between $60 and $70 a ton. So based on the discussions we had with the advisory committee and coming out of the board discussions, we know that to be cost-effective, waste energy likely requires an input of waste from outside this region. In the plan, it's proposed to continue investigating these technologies and continuing to explore opportunities to work with other regions to bring those better economies of scale and lower the costs.
Let's wrap up with a few more slides on implementation. The implementation period would be roughly 10 years long, and the operating costs associated with that are expected to be similar to what we have now, which is about $7.7 million per year, including municipal and regional district costs and services. And we may even see those costs decrease as industry is becoming more responsible for taking portions of the waste stream and being responsible for funding the waste management associated with them. Capital costs for food waste collection, what we've seen is that if they provide food waste collection containers, one for the kitchen and one for the curbside, including delivery of that container, it's about $37 per home. So each municipality engaging in that service would expect to have a capital cost associated of that nature. For expansion of one landfill, you're looking at about $10 million, and we have closure of the filled areas of both sites that would need to happen at $7 million. That's roughly per site. So again, I think the focus of this is intended to drive more waste diversion, increasing it from 48% now to 70% in the future. We think that the recommendations have the great potential to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases from mainly through organics diversion, as well as by having improved landfilling where we can collect the landfill gas and manage it more effectively. Our big challenge, and one of the things that we're hoping to get out from the public consultation, is that need for identifying a preferred option for waste disposal. We believe at least one landfill is required, particularly for the short-term and immediate needs. The community input that we are gathering right now is, as I mentioned in the start, is what we're intending to use to finalize the plan and the recommendations. That input will be taken to the Solid Waste Management Plan Advisory Committee, which has municipalities on municipal representation as well as general public representation on it. Those recommendations from that committee would go to the Solid Waste Management Board, and ultimately when the plan is finalized by the board, it goes to the Minister of Environment for approval. And with that, we're all done, and thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you for your presentations. Any questions from members of council this time?
This question is for Todd. Can you tell me what's going on with Gold River? And I mean, there's talk that there's a waste energy plant ready to go there. What is the status up there? Do you know?
Well, I'll tell you what I can, but Maura may actually have more information than I do. Yeah, they're a step ahead of a lot of the other initiatives that are out there for Metro Vancouver, and they have a real proposal in place, and they've really done a lot of homework to develop a facility in Gold River. So there are other proponents out there who are going to be getting ready to make a bid to Metro Vancouver for a facility, and those facilities are, we understood that one potential location was Campbell River. That may be off the table now. Other locations include Powell River, other places on in the lower mainland.
So if Gold River gets the contract with Metro Vancouver, I mean, the economies of scale to take our stuff is just we'd be a drop in the bucket. Right?
Yeah.
And that 113 or whatever, I can't remember what it
Lot-
was a ton.
yeah.
That should come down significantly, shouldn't it?
It won't come down. Those are system costs. So what those include are rolled into those costs are a tipping fee at that facility. So for example, if it was in Gold River and we use the numbers from that facility that you just mentioned to develop those costs. There's a tipping fee. Then there's construction and operation of transfer stations. There's transport to Gold River. So it's an all-in kind of system cost. Those numbers, in terms of the management of waste, won't come down. But a factor that will affect that is the tipping fee at that facility. And so if it was around $65 a ton at that facility, I think that's the number we used, then those numbers would stand. If it came down, then those numbers would come down. But a lot of the high cost of that particular option is the transportation. And you see that with those options, as it gets closer to the heart of the waste, those costs come down.
Thank you.
Councillor Press.
So, and you factored in the increasing transportation costs as gas prices will inevitably go up.
We did. But what would happen is the costs are all relative to one another, so they're really to compare one option to the next. But there's a whole bunch of factors going into the future that would definitely impact each one of those. Relative to one another, you probably see an increasing gap between those costs, but it wouldn't change the order of those costs.
So you don't think it would affect the value of keeping a facility within each community rather than transporting one way or the other?
That's definitely a consideration over the long term, but to compare, what we're really trying to do is get a general sense of whether waste energy is viable from a cost perspective as compared to landfills, and we see that there's still quite a large gap there, as you would expect, which is anytime there's existing landfill capacity available, it's likely to be the lowest cost option.
And as you probably follow too, the issue that people are seeing within our community is the loss of our recycling bins. And there does seem to be some confusion. Someone phoned me, a Comox resident who taught quality food, who said that it was the regional district who said you were removing the bins and that the curbside pickup was seen as the way to go. So I know people feel very strongly that we need to have alternative methods and that a lot of people aren't covered by curbside pickup. And this person also made a very good observation that if we are going to be putting money into relocating these bins, either buying the land or leasing it, wouldn't it be better to give an incentive to the malls or the grocery shops to actually have them so that they could do a little bit of clean-up around them, because they're such an obvious place of source where everyone at some point goes out to the grocery shops. Yeah. So is there any truth in that?
Well,
it's a message.
First of all, as part of the solid waste management plan process, we're not.
You're divorced from.
Yeah, we're not related to
policy
the
there.
current operation challenges that I understand are happening right now. Tom Bowman, the manager of solid waste, would probably be a better respondent to that question.
Welcome, Tom.
Yes, Councillor. Yes, we're aware of the issues surrounding the taking away of the bins that are now in Comox and Courtney area. And this was a rash of decisions on the part of the owners of the property that decided to remove those. But we are in the process of as fast as we can to replace those with some more permanent locations that would be central to Comox, as central as we can make it to Comox, and also one in Courtney. So that's our plans right now. We didn't know it would be in such a very quick timeline because we didn't anticipate that there'd be multiple owners that would tell us to remove the bins. But we're working as quickly as we can to provide that service to Comox for sure.
Okay, so it was generated from the actual owners to say, please remove them. So anyone who didn't ask for them to be removed, they're still there, the bins.
That's correct. And we've been asked by the solid waste board to make certain that we oversee the contract carefully to ensure that there's no more, that we can preserve those sites as best we can, the ones that remain right now.
So it might be good to look into incentives, though, for places like Quality Food to actually keep the bins, or the locations
Yes.
similar.
Yes, and there's a number of challenges that go into maintaining the sites, and we're looking into that too. Yes, we are.
Any further questions? Councillor McKinnon?
Yes, the sites for public recycling, there was a list of them in the paper, I think, or I saw a copy of them, and I, like many of the councillors, I'm sure, got calls from people wondering about the public places, and I just wondered about public relations with that and enhancing that, because there is confusion as to where they are. In fact, I went down to the base to check one out for a neighbor that was concerned about it, and couldn't find the Canex one. I think it may have been removed too by the Canex station, so if they're...
Yes, we know that the Canex has got a limited lifespan. I'm sorry to say, we've been told that's going to come out, but once again, we're talking to those people at the base to see whether we can extend that one. We're taking that. We did have this public notice that was put out for release, and so we do have an educational program, and we're trying to post all the sites that are being removed as to an alternative location to go to, at least, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks before the actual removal takes place. But it's a change of service, and we recognize that it's a discomfort for the citizens. We do recognize that, and we're trying to respond as quickly as we're able to try to get an intermediate or a permanent site with some of the issues that we have with the current sites removed. So that's one of our objectives with this.
Thank you for that, Tom. Your Worship, I wonder if we may be able to put that accurate information on the town's website, so people...
Sure, we can link to that.
People will be able to...
It's on the regional district website as well. So we have a link to that. I did speak to the Quality Foods manager today. He was at the fire hall. His daughter was in the camp, and really they've had, as our bylaw officer can attest to, no end of nuisance issues, nuisance noise from the neighbors in that area. And both, I think, Quality Foods and Extra Foods have had to deal with a lot of that and a lot of the complaints. And the reality, too, is that we have a curbside collection system which meets most, perhaps not all needs, but most needs in the town. I know that people had gotten used to the bins over the years because we didn't have curbside when the bins came into play. So it is something I'm confident that the regional district staff will look at the criteria that have been established by the board to reestablish on a publicly owned or controlled area, which is going to hopefully be supervised so that we don't have some of those concerns. The challenge may be in the town of Comox to find such a site, but I understand staff are working on that with the regional district. So we'll hopefully be able to do it, but I did probably talk to the same person you talked to, Councillor Price, and I don't know if all the information that you and I received was totally accurate based on my conversation today with the mall manager. So we'll leave it at that for now, and certainly the information is out there. Yes.
I'd just like to point out that there is a resolution that was passed by the Solid Waste Management Committee that staff look into a new recycling facility in Comox on private land. So, in talking with Tom Bolton earlier, they are actively engaged in looking for that plan. So,
All right. Well, thank you for that. And any further questions for our presenters? Seeing none, thank you, everyone, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, we have
Brenda.
Brenda Babin here today. And I
change your name from last meeting?
I'm sure you're here to give us at least a 10-minute presentation on your application.
No.
That's what John's.
I know, and I apologize, John's not here. He's actually been working since 8 o'clock this morning on the site preparation for the parking space, and the side of the house.
Thank you for being here. I assume you're here just to answer any questions.
Yes, if you have any questions,
I don't know if we do. Do we have any questions for the Babins? No? I guess you're up then. Thank you. Your madam will come up later in the meeting.
Okay.
All right, moving on to minutes of meetings. We have the regular council meeting minutes of March 21st for approval. Move.
second.
All those in favor? Motion carried. Committee of the whole minutes, March 28th for receipt. Move receipt. On receipt, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Number of recommendations, first set of them relate to the Northeast Comox Stormwater Management Plan in terms of reference, and we moved those all together last time.
I would like to move all three.
Oh, yes, you can. Sorry about that, I was a little quick off the gun. So, Councillor Swift declaring the conflict of interest issue did last time.
I would move all three recommendations.
Second. All right, any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. Just wait for Councillor Swift to come back. All right, so we, of course, discussed the first draft of the financial plan. There are a series of 10 recommendations that staff have been working diligently at, including within the revised draft. So do you wish to move all those together or separately?
I'll move all 10.
Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion? We'll be seeing this next week, of course. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. And lastly, from the Committee of the Whole, the Fire and Rescue Services Agreement be renewed for 1 year.
Move. Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Under unfinished business, at page 19, we have the management report for receipts. Move.
Second.
On receipt, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Any questions or comments? Of course, we're waiting for both of those things. I believe the arrangements that we're making with KFM are still in the works, and we'll wait to hear on that. And of course, solid waste management is dealing with your minutes. So unless there's anything else, move on to the rezoning application of 1958 Beaufort Avenue, bylaw 1711 is before us for third reading.
Move that.
Second.
At third reading, is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. And
Move adoption.
Second.
on adoption, all those in favor? Motion's carried. That was yours.
So it's free. Thank you very much.
We'll get a letter confirming that from us.
And can we take the sign down?
Our planner will advise you that.
When do you get the letter?
Okay.
Special reports, page 31, we have regional district meeting minutes of March 20th and March 15th. The March 15th is solid waste.
Move both.
Good.
Second.
Any discussion on those? Those in favor? Motion's carried. Bylaws, we have bylaw 1712, Point Homes Water Local Service Parcel Tax Bylaw for adoption.
Move. Second.
Move the second on adoption. All those in favor? Motion's carried. And bylaw 1713, which is appointing a sanitary sewer lift station local areas parcel tax.
Move adoption.
Thank you.
Second.
On adoption then, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Correspondence, we have at page 43, a letter from the Pearl Ellis Gallery and also an accompanying report from our staff. And most of those should be received.
Move receipt.
Second.
Received then, all those in favor? Motion's carried. And the recommendation from our superintendent of parks and buildings is that council permit the Pearl Ellis Gallery to establish a small concrete artist patio in front of the museum gallery building to be constructed and paid for by the gallery members.
I would move that.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Yes, Councilor.
I'd just like to say I think it would be a great addition to the downtown. It will make the facilities more visible and add a bit of colour and life to the streets. I think it'd be great.
Great idea. All right, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Letter from Martin Bridges regarding vessel ownership, insurance, and pleasure craft operator card confirmations. So motion to receive the letter.
I would move receipt of that.
And refer to staff?
And refer to staff. Okay.
I'll second it.
Stephen, refer to staff. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. Staff will report back on that. And as we heard earlier, around recycling containers, this is from the CTRA. Motion to receive that.
Move receipt.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, reports from members of council. Let's start with Councillor Campbell.
Wow, I never get to go first. What happened?
I don't know.
Well, I attended a Comox Cup ball hockey meeting, and we're moving ahead, and things seem to be almost going too well, so the shoe has to drop here soon. It's all working out the way it should. And also, I attended a regional district meeting 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, about a week ago. And that's all I have to report.
Hey, Councillor Tom.
I had nothing to report because I was out of town for the RD meeting, and Ken Grant stood in for me. Thank you, Ken.
All right, Councillor McKinnon.
Yes, after the last council meeting, I went next door for the public hearing on the waste management CRPD public meeting there. I think there was about 25 folks that attended the meeting, and got some information there that is important and valuable. Last Saturday, I attended the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board meeting in Nanaimo, and what was passed for Comox Valley that might be of interest is the new library and site was selected in Cumberland and was passed by the board. And finally today I attended the student fire camp graduation at the Comox Fire Department put on by our fire chief and volunteers there. It's a 5-day camp and approximately, your worship, 30 students I think.
36.
And just a great event and a great 5 days of volunteerism for youth in our community and getting them engaged and perhaps looking to the future as a possible career. In fact, I think they alluded to one of the firemen there now was an ex-student who had been through the program 15 years before. Thank you. That's my report.
Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. Yes, since we last met, I attended the regional board meeting where we did final adoption of the financial plan. And last week, after the committee of the whole, I attended the solid waste open house here in Comox, and then the following evening, I attended the one in Courtney as well. Good turnout in both locations and good information for the community. And today, I did also stop by the Comox Fire Hall and watched the final competition, and I have to say, they made it look fun and they made it look easy, and I'm not sure that it's easy by any means, some of the things that they were doing there. So it looked like a great event. Thanks to everyone.
Councillor Swift.
I attended the solid waste management that took place last week after our council meeting, and I went to the Filbert Association's monthly meeting. I also attended their annual general meeting, which was held on Saturday. I took part in the webinar that was available to us on this topic being Planners and Health Champions in Action. And it was a really interesting collaboration between the City and District of Northam with the Heart and Stroke Foundation and their Vancouver Coastal Health Authority. So it was an interesting webinar to be part of. And I attended the Advisory Planning Commission meeting that was held yesterday.
Councillor Price.
Yes, I attended the Comox Archives and Museum executive meeting where the table officers were elected. I chaired the co-management committee for the Comox Lazo Wildlife Management area, and a project that we've discussed for over a decade is coming to fruition. This is an amphibian crossing on the Lazo Road where MOTI is putting in an amphibian-friendly culvert in conjunction with their roadworks and directional fencing, and will, with assistance, monitor. And that is either going to be in the spring or the fall. I attended the Regional District Solid Waste public presentation that was after our last Committee of the Whole. I also attended the Columbia Institute's forum entitled The Future is Local, and there was a lot of useful information on green infrastructure, green bylaws, preparing for climate change, an interesting presentation on integrated sustainability planning, which is really focused on begin with the end in mind. In 30 years, what is a successful community to you? And then identifying actions to get there and monitoring programs, how to develop indicators to measure success, and there were many examples of practical indicators developed in other communities. There was also a good presentation on local economy tools, and Santa Monica has done a great Buy Local campaign. If you Google Santa Monica Buy Local, which is a partnership of the council and the business community, and maybe some good ideas too for working with our BIA, and based on Think Local First. And I attended the Comox Valley Social Planning Council, and AGM is coming up May the 8th, 12 o'clock noon at the Solon Building in Lewis Park. That's Tuesday, May the 8th.
Thank you. I'll just report on a few things. On 23rd of March, I participated in an operational tour at 19 Wing Comox. The base commander put on for the 3 mayors and the chair of the regional district, as well as MLA. And that included a tour of the Air Maintenance Squadron, the Aurora Squadron, and the StarTAC Squadron. And the highlight of the day, other than lunch, was the Cormorant flight out over the glacier and back. So they didn't leave us stranded there, do a rescue demonstration. So we don't have to answer the questions that Minister of National Defense had to answer in terms of his Cormorant flight. So it was a great day, and we really enjoyed it, and they sure are professionals there at the base. All the stuff going on behind the scenes is quite remarkable. I was at the Comox First Nation Agreement and Principle signing ceremony on the 24th. And that night participated in the 2nd annual Mayor's Cup hockey game, and we defended the title. You can see the trophy there again. In a hotly contested 5-4 victory, and raised this year $3,500 for Kids Sport Comox Valley. So that was a great effort and great cause. A couple days later, I went down to Victoria on personal time, where I did meet Mayor Stu Young from the City of Langford at the Gila fundraising dinner that night. So we had a brief chat about some of the things in Langford that they've been doing. Of course, we've been emulating through building permits and development permit processing. So it was a great event, a great cause, and nice to see Mayor Young. Literacy Day through Rotary involved a reading that I did at grade 3 class at Brooklyn School, the new Brooklyn School at Cape Lazo, and that was great fun, and we handed out some town pins as part of that. And also that day, I participated or saw Honorary Colonel John Marinas, former councillor here, become the Honorary Colonel of 19 Air Maintenance Squadron. And, he looked really sharp in his uni, and was proud as much to have that honor. And of course, attended the Solid Waste Management open house that night. On the 30th, met briefly with Chief Superintendent of the RCMP, Randy Wilson, and his staff who were here in town doing a bit of goodwill amongst the communities, talk about some of the issues we talked about here a few weeks ago, and of course the next night had the retirement dinner for Inspector Gray. Saturday also saw the Enbridge pipeline hearing, and I was there to just observe and see how staff managed the crowds there at the rec center. And I must say, along with the RCMP and the rally participants as well, how well behaved everyone was, and it was great to see that kind of event could happen at our rec center, and everything worked really well. So kudos to our staff for making arrangements. And then Glen Wills opened his new marine supply services store here below the credit union, so it's nice to see that, and was at the opening, and also at the AGM for the Philbert Lodge that Councillor Swift was at. Tuesday, I made a presentation at Courtney Rotary on our strategic plan and a bit on our financial plan as we've been going through it. I think that was well received. Nobody threw anything anyway. And the firefighter camp grad today was also on my list of things that I did. So that's it for my report, and I don't think there's any late items and media questions. Any questions? All right, there's nobody left here from the public, so I don't
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All those in favor? Meeting adjourned, and